Welcome to Bleav in Arizona State, episode 33. I am your host, Bannon Clark, alongside Mr. Evan Reiser. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into, a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and I'll give a full disclaimer for this episode. Obviously, we will be recapping the recent game in the Peach Bowl against Texas, but this will probably end up being a part one and a part two. We got a lot to get into. We like so much. So we normally do the show kind of quick, but we're going to cut it up in two parts for you guys because we appreciate you guys from the bottom of our heart, first and foremost. How amazing this season has been and how different of it's been, one that I'll remember, one that I know you Sun Devil fans will remember. So we're kind of going to take a little more of the personal route with this one. So obviously feel free to continue to listen for all you Sun Devil fans or people that are new to this, and make sure that you're following us on Instagram at Bleav in ASU. We're not going anywhere. If you're thinking that, we are just continuing this start as obviously Arizona State football is continuing that. Yeah, this game definitely means a lot, but I think this is kind of a personal moment as well, starting with this, without this school, this amazing school, I want to first off and say, and then I want to talk a little, obviously I got to be in Atlanta for it, so I have a different perspective, but one guy that's always had not just a different perspective in my life, but in this podcast, and one guy that would not be talking to if it wasn't for this damn freaking school, Evan Reiser, man. Evan, obviously I know we had the holiday break. This is our first time that we have spoken. It's not that we don't talk to each other or anything. We've just been busy, and obviously the game happened a couple of days ago.
Since the game, yeah.
We haven't spoken, and I think it's good that we haven't because we got to let the viewers know how we think. But let's start off with you, Evan. Obviously, we'll get more into the stats and all that, but I just want to get initial reaction, how you're feeling basically now 48 out, and by the time we're recording this now, 48 hours after the game.
Yeah. God, I'm still a little sad. I mean, it's hard to look at this thing and not say, man, where do you sit? And I'm not sad because they lost. I'm sad because they lost and I thought they outplayed Texas, which is, a good and a bad thing in the fact that you lost a game where you outplayed the opponent, but you outplayed the opponent who was Texas, who by all rights was one of the best teams in the country all year long. And there were some question marks on Ewers. Ewers looked good. Towards the end of that game, he made some throws, and listen, he looked healthy. That's the biggest thing. Is he looked healthy. He looked a little bit slower than normal on the rushing touchdown and some other things. Thought he typically breaks some of the tackles, at least early in the season or late last year, that he didn't in that game. But I think that there was a little bit of shock there from Arizona State in the beginning of that game, and I was surprised to see that I thought, not that they didn't come out unprepared. That's wrong because they scored 3 on the first drive. But it felt like in that first quarter, the moment got the best of them a little. And I wasn't, not that I wasn't surprised. That's the wrong way to say, I'm not surprised that I am. But I understand, a lot of these guys hadn't seen the big moment. And, let's not overlook it. The quarterback's a freshman. And he's been awesome all year. I thought he struggled in this game, especially early. A lot of that to do with the pressure and some of the packages Texas sent his way. But they were still in the game, and that defense really kept him in. I mean, you take a look at the 3 quarters. Arizona State only gave up 10 points defensively. The 7 on the punt return. Listen, there's a lot to be excited about coming out of this Peach Bowl. A ton of excitement. And, Sam Levitt kind of took the Instagram story and said, we're going to run it back next year. We'll be back kind of thing. And I think that kind of instills a tremendous amount of comfort and, inspiration for everybody that, listen, this team is going to be back. And they're going to be back next year with one of the Heisman favorites. And I can't imagine they're anything short of the favorite in the Big 12.
And I think just from the outside, just for you and I, Evan, for doing this show, because people that don't understand, when we got this show, courtesy of the Bleav Network, obviously appreciate them for treating us right. Obviously, once again, speaking of treating us right, Evan, Jake Plummer, want to say thank you to you once again for coming on the show. It was great to have that conversation. We'll get into that a little bit later. when we started this, Evan, it was midway through that Kansas game. And not a lot of people know that. They think that we have just started throughout the season. Obviously, the way that we have fallen in love with this team is because of our individual passion as being there for 4 years, meeting in the freshman dorms and whatnot. But I think it just gives us more excited for this podcast, considering how good this team is doing, and not just on the basketball and all the other sports as well. And Graham Rossini did a great job in his interviews as far as including all the other sports teams, which, we'll play that soundbite, of course. But, it gives me a lot of hope. And I think we all knew that win or loss at the end of the day, that a lot of guys saying they're coming back, being passionate, not just saying, hey, guys, coming back 4 years. Like, it's true passion. Like, we believe in something here. And to think of what these games for Arizona State are going to be next year, I can't even imagine what that means, especially without guys like Scadaboo. And we'll see what happens in the near future, especially with the transfer portal. But I want to get back to the Peach Bowl a little more, talking about Atlanta for you, and just kind of painting a picture to all the viewers out there. And I want to bottom of my heart, first off, say it was amazing to meet a lot of you new fans. We got a lot of new fans of the show. Super excited about that. And just those that were able to make the game in Atlanta, because I'll give you my first impression. I thought it was going to be 70-30 Texas fans because, Texas has already played in Georgia. They're a big time program. To anybody that believed that is stupid, because it was the other way around. And to tell you that I had so much pride, not just as a former alumni, but someone that does this show, it was the coolest thing to see that many Sun Devil fans. So to any Sun Devil fan that showed up to Atlanta, applaud yourself. It was a great time. Win or loss, I'm really getting choked up saying that because, to see that against a school like Texas, and it just also shows that Texas doesn't care. If I'm going to be a little salty here, it shows that we actually care. And I know they've been there before, and this was like our Super Bowl. But Evan, I really thought it was going to be 70-30 Texas fans. And then everywhere when I went out, not just counting the game, it was at least 90-10, and with flooding downtown Atlanta. I only saw maroon and gold from the Waffle House to the College Football Hall of Fame Museum to some of the bars, which I'll give you a funny story as well, Evan. Obviously, we need to talk about later on Kenny Dillingham getting extended. I got a good story for you that as well. We want to get into that as well. So we'll talk. We got a lot to talk about, of course, but just wanted to give a personal note to all the Sun Devil fans for really showing out in Atlanta, because that was really cool for me. That was amazing to see the amount of fans that traveled, but also just to show the sheer passion that is now beginning and has been before. And we never saw that in our 4 years, Evan. We never did. We can all say that we left the games at halftime. We all know why. And Kenny is such an anomaly to that, because everything that this man has manifested has really happened. And that starts with instilling a culture, not just within the football program, but also the fans. So to see that was incredible. We got a lot to get into. Let's get more into this Peach Bowl right now. Obviously, Bleav in.
I want to touch on what you said real quick.
Go ahead. Absolutely, yeah.
2 years ago, Kenny Dillingham took this job, and he talked about activating the Valley. And what does that look like? Was what a lot of people said, and what is that process? And I came back working for the team, interning when he had first taken over. And I said to everybody, listen, 4 or 5 years, this team's going to be really good. And get in here on the ground floor, because, I'm a believer in what Kenny Dillingham is building here. And not only that, I really think that this community could rally around this team in a few years. And, you look around and you're like, okay, they have untapped markets. And they have a football scene, from a high school perspective, that is extremely impressive and untapped to a lot of the ASU community. And they have done a nice job garnering that. And it's not just that. Listen, if you live in Phoenix, you didn't go to Arizona State, it doesn't really matter. They're still your closest college, and it's cool to have a college team. Everybody has an NFL team or a basketball team, but to have a college football team to rally around is something unlike other sports. And I make the joke that I love the pageantry, but in all seriousness, there's nothing like headed down to Atlanta for the Peach Bowl, going down, if they had the opportunity to play at the Rose Bowl, which was a slim chance this year, There's nothing like that tradition and that kind of feeling that you can get from college football compared to some of the other sports. And I think some of the local people who aren't really even connected with ASU have found their love for college football in Arizona State this year. And a lot of that's to do with Kenny Dillingham. Bannon, they had a NIL meeting this week, or last week, sorry. And they had one in August as well. And I want you to guess how many people showed up in August.
Wow. How many people showed up? Okay.
To the NIL meeting in August.
50.
No, 10. You know how many were there last week?
I'll go a good 100. I'll say lower.
Over 500.
Over 500.
Over 500 people at the NIL meeting last week. That is what activating the Valley is. And yeah, it helps to have a good team. But I'm talking, we've had good teams under Jaden and Herm. They were decent teams, and they lost big games, sure. But they were decent teams. This is a different feeling. This is a decent team that has earned the respect of an entire town, of an entire city, of a greater area. The entire Valley respects what Arizona State has done this year. And not only that, but the country does. You people like Dave Portnoy, all in on the Devils. Big Cat, all in on the Devils. That's just to name a few. You could go up and down the media landscape on the second, on the morning of the second. And Bannon, every station you turn to was talking about the missed targeting call. And I don't want to get into it again. They've talked about it enough. That's not what this show is about. But every media station talked about it. And then everyone said the same exact thing. This team got punched in the face in the first quarter and continued to respond. This coach has talked about 3 things since he's come here. Activate the Valley. We're going to rally to the football. We're going to create turnovers. And last but not least, we're going to respond. And Bannon, what did this team do? You talked about it being 70-30 in Atlanta. They caused the biggest turnover of the season with the ability to tie the game late in the fourth quarter. And last but not least, they responded after getting punched in the face in the first quarter. Texas scored 2 plays into the game offensively and then didn't run another play before it was 14-3 Texas. And Arizona State took them to overtime. In a team that I said last week, if they go down 2 scores, Texas can just pin their ears back, let that rush get to work, and Arizona State's going to struggle. Yeah. Screw me. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what I'm talking about. Because that right there has made me the proudest Sun Devil fan, employee, and member of this podcast I have ever been. That was showing the whole country that we belonged. And there's been tons of questions on what teams belonged in the college football playoff this year, but there's not one today on whether Arizona State deserved to be in that game.
And the one thing about that, and it really, stands with me as far as being such a proud alumni. The one cool thing that I saw when I was at the game was there was a lot of families there. And when I mean families, it was a lot of adults that were at that Rose Bowl game and them bringing their kid to this one. I met a lot of families on my flight, at social gatherings. It was all Arizona State and Atlanta. I can't express that to anybody that, because I really came into it, Evan, thinking, okay, we're going to have 30% fans, if anything, because Texas is Texas and they got the fans and they're closer. It was the polar opposite of that. And that's what made it so special to be a part of. Where I was seated, it was cool to be seeing the last 2 touchdowns of that fourth quarter and that comeback being on the Texas side. I thought that was seeing the 2-point conversion to Guillory. I almost lost my voice. It was an unreal game. And obviously to the city of Atlanta for the hospitality, I would just say great city if you've never been. It wasn't as cold as I thought it was going to be, Evan. I mean, you obviously, I'm the West Coast guy, you're the East Coast guy. It was perfect. So it worked out in that regard. But I thought that was a very underrated moment for me, just seeing that around, was families and people that were at that Rose Bowl game that went to the Peach Bowl game with their kid. And I was like, that is so sick. Like, that is now me being 22.
About,
and
right? That's what it's all
what?
about.
Oh, it's what it's all about. What it's all about, no question. And and you talk about tradition, and you talk about that. Like, this isn't a common thing for us. Like, obviously, we might have more people because we've quote unquote never been here before, but to see that was a great thing. And then let's get into that national media, because it's so great that you brought up the national media. Because listen, I mean, to see the attention that Arizona State got, it's about time. We have been preaching this for months. Any true Arizona State fan can tell you about this team. And this game kind of solidified that. And then, Evan, when you look down at every game that happened, disregard the first quarter of this game, easily the best game. It shows a lot about, what the questions lie for the college football playoff now when you talk about having 3 weeks rest coming into this. And I think that was the number one concern that Arizona State fans had. And, we definitely played into the moment. That first quarter, 100%. When you got 2 plays and you're down that quick, any team would have given up. I think there was a lot of disbelief. I think especially when it was 17-3 rather than 24-8. But then you begin to see some things happen. Obviously, calls don't go our way. God, it's still killing me that we're even talking about that. But I want to get more with the college football playoff layout and I know we're kind of going off still because Arizona State, to me, was the best game out of that, including the first round. Do you think
it's been the best game in the college football playoffs this year? I think, Ben, when you stack this game up over the history of the college football playoff, and obviously we're talking about what was a much smaller playoff just last year, but when you start remembering college football games, like which ones are better? And I ask you that, and the one that immediately there's 3 that immediately come to mind of like Alabama winning on the over the top to Devontae Smith in overtime to the national championship over Georgia. That was awesome. The one game where Deshaun Watson hits Hunter Renfrow on an out on the last second to win that game and make them national champions. And then outside of that, you talk about the Rose Bowl in 2018, I Bleav, with Mayfield, and they came up short against Fromm in Georgia, which ended up being one of the great playoffs because that game rolled into what was one of the great national championships we've ever seen. So those are like some big ones that jump out of the page, but I don't know if there's a better game. And I think the only other one you could argue is the Michigan TCU game where kind of all madness broke out. That 3rd and 8 where Georgia sends the house and Quentin Johnson takes it all the way down the sideline. This is a top 5 college football playoff game since its inception. And I think that goes to show the fight that Arizona State had. Because, Bannon, I don't want to overstate this. They were 14-point underdogs. 14-point underdogs. And they took Texas to overtime. And by the way, we're down 16 with 7 minutes left in the 4th quarter. And we're 1 play shy of winning that football game and going on to play in the Cotton Bowl for a chance to go to the national championship. They were 1 play from being in the Final 4 teams. And I don't want to take that away from them. Like, I don't want to overlook that because that is by far, to me, one of the most impressive feats I've ever seen by a football team ever. And I mean, this team, what they had done this year is nothing short of spectacular, amazing, incomparable in a sense. Fight, period. They fought, and they fought, and they fought. And, God, they fought till the very bitter end. And you hope something like that at the very end, doesn't discourage Sam's growth because they're not there without Sam, period. And they don't get to the second overtime.
And his ability to run the ball, I think, was so overlooked by so many people as far as, oh, wait, he has wheels?
Yep. And they don't even get to score to get to second overtime without Sam picking up 3rd and 14 with a little scamper of 16 that looked eerily similar to a little Jake Plummer action there.
It was. It really was.
And seeing him fired up on the sideline was awesome for any Sun Devil fan. This is the type of thing that you build on. This is the type of loss that, yeah, it's a loss, but it's a program builder. And I'm so happy for these guys, and I'm fired up to be a Sun Devil fan and see where this thing goes. Because we're gonna get into it in future episodes, but they've been crushing the transfer portal. And this thing's going to continue to snowball and continue to build on itself. And Sam Levitt's going to be, a top 5, top 6 Heisman favorite coming into next year. And that's going to be exciting to watch. I mean, you're going to have one of the best quarterbacks in the country playing in Tempe. That means something.
It means a lot, especially just kind of with you talk about being a program builder. It really was. And, we'll end this part 1 real quick and obviously get into part 2. But I want to end on this note. Going back to Jake Plummer, talking about a program builder for this, the fact that we got Jake Plummer to come on our show, easily one of the biggest episodes that we had on the program. But, it wasn't the biggest one, Evan. And I got some news for you, some big news. I've been holding this in for Evan for a little bit. And this goes to you guys, making it all happen. The last 3 episodes that we've had have been really fun. We've had Jake Plummer, we've had Coach Charlie Regal, and then we did our Peach Bowl preview. Obviously, we're doing the reaction episode, this one. Did our Peach Bowl preview. And I just want to say, seriously, and this is a huge moment. Those were 3 of our best episodes that we have ever had. All 3 of our episodes, actually doubling our last highest episode when we previewed the BYU game. I don't like to talk numbers a whole lot, but that just goes to show you that the last 3 episodes and people were really starting to Bleav. And this literally was started from absolutely nothing. Obviously, Bleav making this happen. But the fact that our last 3 episodes, a lot of that having to do with our guests, but the Peach Bowl preview show, you guys tore it up. I am talking an insane amount of people tuning in, and not just through the Spotify, through all of our Sirius XM listeners, really showing love to us in that regard. So want to thank Bleav once again for making this happen, taking a chance on us. And like I said, with Arizona State, and this is a program builder, and you could say for this show, it's definitely been a program builder for us as well, because now we got a lot of new listeners, and we're going to continue that energy no matter what. We are not done in any way. We still got other sports to talk about. We're going to have a lot of new guests. We got a lot of new faces. We are very, very excited. So want to end it with you guys here on part 1 of the Peach Bowl preview show, and then we'll Peach Bowl reaction show. And then this part, upcoming part 2, we are actually going to get into the game as Texas defeated Arizona State double overtime, 39-31. This is Bleav in Arizona State.